The Attorney General of Venezuela, Tarek William Saab, expressed the respect of the public ministry for the decision adopted by the executive branch regarding the exit of former opposition presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez from the country. The United Commissions of Constitutional Affairs and Legislative Studies of the Mexican Senate approved on September 8 the resolution of the reform to the judicial power. And Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip took the lives of at least 10 people on Monday. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Venezuelan Public Ministry issued a statement on the events related to Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia, who had been requested by means of an arrest warrant for his repeated refusals to appear before citations issued by the Public Prosecutor's Office. In this statement, it is said this public ministry had first-hand knowledge of the exact moment in which citizens Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia entered the embassy of the Kingdom of Spain in Caracas. Then, we were informed by the Venezuelan authorities of the asylum request made by him within the framework of international human rights law and diplomatic relations between the states. He continues by stating the governments of Spain and Venezuela agreed to grant safe conduct to the citizen Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia so that he could leave the national territory and apply for the asylum granted by Spain. Consequently, this public ministry expresses absolute respect for the decision of the Venezuelan executive so that in compliance with the right to asylum guaranteed by Article 69 of the Constitution of the Republic, it has granted the corresponding safe conduct. Finally, the document affirms once in his communication to the public ministry received on September 4th, the citizen Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia expressed his recognition of the ministry's authority as Attorney General of the Republic and the competencies that the institution has based on the Constitution and the law. This public ministry has maintained a close communication established during the last days with the legal representative of Mr. Gonzalez Urrutia, Attorney Jose Vicente Haro, for the consequent purposes of the case being investigated by this office. Foreign Minister of Venezuela Ivan Gil announced that the former right-wing candidate Gonzalez was taking refuge in the Embassy of the Netherlands during the violent events that took place in the context of the presidential elections of last July 28th.
Mr. Gonzalez Urrutia took refuge in the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands one day after the elections. That is to say, his plan was never an electoral issue.
Similarly, regarding the statements made by the Dutch Foreign Minister, the Venezuelan Foreign Minister pointed out that the former far-right candidate Edmundo Gonzalez had told the government of the Netherlands of his intention to leave the country.
Not only did he enter the embassy and ask for guest status, but he asked to leave the country and told the government of the Netherlands, who confirms it in this communication, of his own free will, Mr. Gonzalez Urrutia wanted to leave the country.
Moving on to other news, Colombia creates the first education system of Latin America that preserves the identity of indigenous peoples. This system preserves ancestral knowledge, strengthens cultural identity, and promotes respect for the traditions of the native communities. The Organization of Indigenous Peoples of the Colombian Amazon announced on September 7th the creation of the first indigenous education system in the region. The Minister of Education, Daniel Rojas Medellin, signed the act in which he committed the ministers of the national government involved in the effort to launch the program to sign the decree law. The minister emphasizes that 3 decades after the proclamation of the 1991 Constitution, it is the government of Gustavo Petro that signs the act formalizing the first indigenous education system of Latin America. And in Uruguay, in view of the general elections in October, Frente Amplio political party highlighted the fight against child poverty as its priority. During her first public speech as a politician, senatorial candidate Blanca Rodriguez remarked that children should become the focus of efforts in Uruguay, since they have a higher level of poverty than society in general. In that sense, data from the National Institute of Statistics indicate that 20% of children under 6 years of age live in poverty. Rodriguez emphasized that public safety will be another priority for the leftist alliance in view of the national election scheduled for next October 27th. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back. The United Commissions of Constitutional Affairs and Legislative Studies of the Mexican Senate approved this September 8th the resolution of the reform to the judicial power. After 6 hours of debate, the resolution received 25 votes in favor and 12 against. The reform was promoted by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and seeks to have judges, magistrates, and ministers elected by popular vote. The project has generated strong resistance because it would completely modify the judicial power. It establishes that ministers of the Supreme Court, members of the Council of the Federal Judiciary, magistrates of the Federal Electoral Tribunal, and district judges would be appointed in open elections. The following step is to the resolution to be discussed in the full Senate. And the National Electoral Council of Honduras called on political parties and citizens to participate in the upcoming primary elections to be held on March 9, 2025. The President of the National Electoral Council, Ana Paola Hol Garcia, together with the other members of the Council, expressed that this call formally marks the beginning of the electoral process. She also stated that the primaries will allow the election of 3 presidential nominees, 20 deputies to the Central American Parliament, 128 congressmen, and 298 mayors. Previously, the National Congress unanimously approved a special budget of nearly $60 million to guarantee the 2025 primary and general elections. Likewise, the representative of the electoral body of Honduras, Ana Paola Hol, highlighted the responsibility of the plenarization in view of the complex political scenario in which the electoral process takes place.
Honduras pasa por tiempos difíciles y todo indica que el contexto de las elecciones será.
Honduras is going through difficult times, and everything indicates that the context of the elections will be complex. In a polarized country where political adversaries make accusations against each other that, with or without reason, generate an undesirable atmosphere of doubts and tension. Making elections in this context is a challenge to be met with determination, courage, and the spirit of country. As a member of the plenary that will be sworn in the next few days, I am aware of our enormous responsibility, of the balances and the equilibrium that the 3 of us must necessarily build for the sake of the trustworthiness of the process.
In Vietnam, at least 14 people lost their lives on Saturday due to the passage of Typhoon Yagi, considered the most powerful typhoon recorded in Asia so far in 2024. The casualties were in the territory's northern provinces of Quang Ninh, Haiphong, and Hai Duong, where at least 219 people were also reported injured, mostly due to falling trees and debris, and 1 person is missing. The Vietnamese government evacuated more than 50,000 people from high-risk areas and mobilized nearly 500,000 soldiers for rescue and recovery efforts. Moreover, Typhoon Yagi left 22 people dead between China and the Philippines, although in the latter country, in addition to the death, 26 people were reported missing and 22 injured. And an out-of-control wildfire near Los Angeles in the United States forced hundreds of residents to evacuate their homes amid a heatwave sweeping the metropolitan area. The fire started on Thursday in the San Bernardino National Forest. Since then, the fire has spread, and as of Sunday, some 70 square kilometers of grass and chaparral had been burned. California Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency on Saturday night, and evacuation orders were issued in the communities of Running Springs, Arrow Bear Lake, as well as warnings of possible evacuations in other areas. 600 firefighters, assisted by helicopters, were deployed to combat the blaze, and at least 3 personnel were injured during the efforts. Pope Francis said goodbye to Papua New Guinea on Monday in a meeting attended by thousands of young people. Before continuing his tour of Asia and Oceania, he went to the capital stadium to meet with young Catholics. As in this type of meeting, he preferred not to give a prepared speech and started a dialogue with them. He spoke about the need not to fall into indifference and urged them to give help when they see someone falling on the street. He asked all of them to make the gesture of lifting someone off the ground. The Pope encouraged young people to learn a common language, the language of love. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. One short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip took the lives of at least 10 people on Monday. As the genocide reaches its 339th day, a series of Israeli airstrikes hit homes in Al-Bureij and Al-Nusrat refugee camps in central Gaza, killing 7 Palestinians and injuring several more. In this context, family members gathered outside the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah to bid farewell to their loved ones who were killed during the day. According to health authorities, at least 40,972 people have been killed by Israel since October 7th. The Palestinian government denounced the violence of the Israeli regime for murders committed against women in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian National Authority condemned the brutal murder of the U.S. activist Aysenur Eski, who died after being shot by Israeli gunfire during a peaceful demonstration in Nablus. Likewise, 2 Palestinian teenage girls were victims. Consequently, the foreign ministry has demanded international protection for the Palestinians and to address the Zionist violations in the Gaza Strip. It should be noted that there has been a recent increase in hostilities in the occupied West Bank. In the United Kingdom, the Iranian embassy denounced that British media do not allow a coverage of the events in Gaza that would allow a humanitarian announcement for the benefit of the Palestinian people. The Embassy of Iran in the United Kingdom denounced the lack of impartiality of the BBC coverage of the genocide in Gaza. In this context, while other British broadcasters transmit the announcement on the humanitarian crisis, the BBC indicated that the situation in Gaza does not cover all the criteria to be classified as a national crisis, which is why the media delayed the appeal from the Emergency Disaster Committee and aid agencies. Meanwhile, in Jordan, hundreds of people demonstrating solidarity with the Palestinian people and to condemn the crimes of the Israeli regime in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. The crowded demonstration marched through the streets of Amman, the capital of the country, to condemn the genocide perpetrated by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories. During the protest, they set fire to an Israeli flag and chanted slogans against the Zionist regime. In other news, the United Nations is implementing a project to combat famine in Sudan after the reopening of the border crossing with Chad. At least 1,599 metric tons of vital food and nutritional supplies crossed the border to help 130,000 famine-stricken people. At least 22,000 Sudanese received emergency food rations and almost 4,800 children, pregnant and lactating women received nutritional supplements. It should be noted that the authorities opened the Adra crossing on August 20th as a fundamental way to prevent the famine from spreading in the African nation. And in China, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said that the government has banned the adoption of its children by foreigners. Despite the new measure, an exception will be made for foreigners who want to adopt a blood relative, such as stepchild in China. Over the past 3 years, tens of thousands of Chinese children have been adopted by foreign families, with the United States leading the way. Although there are no official statistics, some reports indicate that more than 82,000 children have gone to U.S. families in the last 3 decades. Currently, many parents from the U.S. have applied to adopt in China, but these cases have been discontinued. And September 9th is a date of great historical significance for North Korea as they celebrate the declaration of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. On Monday, various events are held in the Asian country to commemorate the 76th anniversary of the establishment of the nation, such as the opening of an exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts with sovereignty and national independence as the main theme, and a stamp exposition at the Pyongyang Philatelic Museum. And Paris ends its first edition as host of the Paralympic Games this September 8th with accomplishments and also points to be improved in terms of inclusion for diversity and mobility in the city. The first Paralympic Games hosted in Paris ended this September 8th with several milestones to highlight in the middle of the effort to achieve equity in adapted sports. Although the French capital was a symbol of progress in most aspects of the event, the lack of access for inclusive mobility in the city was also exposed. China and the United States once again showed their power in the medal standings and competed for first place along with the United Kingdom. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.